Okay. So I'm seeing that some are still 53% Yolelwa for saying they are somewhat familiar, so they know the basics. So some heard about it, but don't know much, which is 22%. And not familiar at all, we have 22% of our audience. So if, just to let you know, this webinar is also live streamed. So if you have to, if you are online on our YouTube channel, on our social platform, you can also put in your comment section how familiar you are. So thank you very much. So I see that they're very familiar. No one actually said they are. So no one here is very familiar. Is not is very familiar about beneficial ownership. So we have people who they know the basics, somewhat they've heard about it, but they don't know much. Some not familiar. So I'm going to hand over to Yolelwa to take us through the legal framework and the compliance requirements around beneficial ownership, so that at least she can take us through that.
Good morning, colleagues. Molen, will you be putting the slides?
Okay, I can put that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think as an opening, I'm just so glad to see entrepreneurs that have actually joined. The topic itself is somewhat, new, and the requirements are new in South Africa. Of course, this is as a result of the fact that money laundering has become a biggest problem in South Africa. So each and every legislation that's being enacted, it is trying to deal exactly with money laundering. So you would ask yourself, as a small business or even a big business, what do I have to do with telling CIBC who are my shareholders, or where do I hold other shares in other companies? But this is the essence of the registration of beneficial ownership. It stems directly from the issue that the state is trying to control money laundering and other financing territories offenses. So at the core, it is designed to assist law enforcement to make sure that they know who owns what where. So if you have noticed, for those who do tenders for the state, the SBD forms have now been updated to reflect the requirement to disclose beneficial ownership. But the language itself at this stage is not perfect, but you would see a question that says, when you're completing the tender documents, you would have a question that says, do you know someone in the state? And then you'll tick that. And then they will ask, do you own shares in another entity, whether that entity is bidding or not? The idea there is that they want to know whether there is potential conflict, or you control another entity that can influence the decision. So, Molen, we can go to the regulatory slide. So what is key here is that the Companies Act has now been amended, has recently been amended to include the fact that there is a requirement. Remember, your financials are supposed to be submitted under Section 33, but the Act has now been amended to include that once you do that, you also have to file your beneficial ownership registration, or details for that matter, and that is regulated by Section 50, Section 56, and there's a specific regulation which is 32A. It has other subsections because it also regulates which type of companies or which manner in which companies must file the BOs. So importantly is that these BOs are designed, like I say, to identify individuals that exercise control or own part of the company over 5%. So as you can see, the threshold is low. In essence, if someone owns 5% upwards, they have to file at the CIBC to indicate that they own shares in some other company. The purpose is that it promotes transparency, and obviously then, as I've mentioned, it deals with money laundering issues. Next slide, Molden. So, of course, there is a provision in the Act that deals with penalties. So, if you don't file, there is a penalty that the regulators can fine your company. And at this stage, that is regulated by Section 175. However, before the fine is levied, you will receive a notice under Section 171 that tells you that you have not complied. You are given a specific number of days to cure that compliance. Otherwise, you would attract a penalty. But as we know that this is linked to the responsibilities of directors under the Companies Act to make sure that companies are compliant. And for that compliance to happen, directors have a fiduciary duty to make sure that they comply with legislation. Thanks, Marlon. Marlon, can you hear me? I think Tendai can come in.
Yes, okay. No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Yolelwa. Thank you for that overall understanding of what does the Companies Act say around beneficial ownership. I think what is to just emphasize as well from Yolela's point of from Yolela's slides or her presentation is this is legislated, and as directors of organization, we need to be able to comply with that because there are certain consequences, obviously, if the company is not compliant. So before we just move on to Tendai, we just want to find out, has your company submitted its beneficial ownership information to CIPC? Because it's something that is new that just come up. So have your company submitted the ownership, the beneficial ownership? You can just answer that question. Okay, 38% of the audience, 40%, that's good. They have already submitted. 6% has not yet. So 22%, and others are not applicable. So 22% have not yet submitted. Thank you. Just waiting for a few, because I think so far 66% of the audience participated. So if we can all participate, that would be great. Okay, so I think thank you for participating. 39% have submitted, 6 have not. So now I'm going to just hand over to Tendai, but I think before I just do that, I just wanted to, let me just close the poll quickly. I just wanted to just emphasize, in case there is someone who wants to, especially for those that haven't yet submitted, I just want to emphasize one point there. Just bear with me so that I can switch off the slides. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay, before we just move on to the process, I just wanted to emphasize the definition actually of beneficial ownership, so that some people who might be thinking, am I the am I required to do that? But I think Yolelwa have emphasized that if you own 5% or more of that company or exercise effective control of that particular company, including the holding of beneficial interests in that company, or you exercise control of or the voting, you have voting rights associated with that shares of that company. So these are the requirements. I think we'll also be able to share with you the slides. So if you if the holding of beneficial interest in the security or the ability to exercise control include through a chain of ownership. Some people, we always hear other people saying, but this company is owned by another company, so who should file? So we go back to say, who is the owner? Something like that. So it's very, very important to understand who is a beneficial owner and who should be able to submit. Remember, in respect of a company, it means an individual, which is a natural person who directly. So if the company, if you have a group of companies, then the ownership of that company is owned by another group. We go back to the individual behind those other companies. So very, very important to understand that. So I'm just going to hand over to Tendai to take us through the process. Tendai, do you want me to share or you want to share your own slides for the floor?
Thank you, Malin. I think I'll share my slides from this side.
Okay, let me stop sharing for myself. Okay.
Okay, I'm just about to share my slides.
Or in the meantime, if you have any question, you can also drop them on the chat so that at least when we do questions, we be able.
Okay, I'll wait for you. Go ahead, Malin.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Tendai.
Oh, okay. All right. Good morning again, colleagues. So I'm going to take you through the process of filing the beneficial ownership, the requirements, the possible implications, and also how it links with the annual returns. So firstly, I'm going to speak about annual returns because with beneficial ownership, you need to file your beneficial ownership so that you can file your annual returns. You would have seen that recently, if you have attempted to actually file an annual return and your beneficial ownership is not up to date, there's a prompt that says you need to file your beneficial ownership first before you do your annual return. So your annual return is due on the anniversary date of the company registration date. So that means that, for example, if you have registered your company on the 1st of April, for example, 2023, your anniversary date is gonna be the following year on the same date that you registered the company. Just need to take note that it does not collide with your year end, because you might have registered your company to have a February year end, but however, should you have registered in April, in August, or any other date, that's the anniversary date. That is your anniversary date. So basically, your annual return now becomes due 30 days after the anniversary date. So let's use an example, a practical example. If it's a company, if you're incorporated, that means if you have registered on the 1st of April, the annual return would be due by the 30th of April, which means 30 business days after the anniversary date. So the thing to take note there is that the year end does not necessarily mean that that's your anniversary date. Your anniversary date is the date at which the company was incorporated or the company was registered. If it's a CC, then it's the same as the same due date. It's just worded differently to just say that it's from the day that it's due up until 30 business days, which means at the end of the following month, at the end of, for example, if you're incorporated on the 15th of July, the annual return will be due between the 15th up to the 31st, which is more or less the same as what we said about a company. So that's for annual returns. So for you to file your annual return, you're basically saying that in the year that you've been operating, how much revenue have you generated between the incorporation date up until the anniversary date? That is what you have to declare to CIPC, and then based on the revenue figure, there's an amount that will be payable to CIPC. So you have to just ensure that all your company information is up to date, and also that your payments, if you're going to pay electronically or if you're just going to use your card, it's everything is available, such that should there be anything that goes amiss, CIPC you can verify, and then all the information is available. So when you're filing your annual return, you just need to ensure that your revenue is as accurate as possible, which means it's coming from your accounting records, and you need to ensure that all the fees are payable. That is the fee payable to CIPC, which means that the CIPC, the customer code for the CIP for your CIPC would need to be loaded, your account for CIPC. Otherwise, if you're using an accountant, there'll be different arrangement in that regard. Okay, so now going back to beneficial ownership. For you to file your beneficial ownership, you would require to have your ID copy. So if you're a South African citizen or if you're a permanent resident, then you need your ID copy, which means that, for example, if you're a foreign national and you registered using a passport, you need to and you have gotten your permanent resident, you need to make sure that all the details are updated on CIPC, because if on your registration, you're still using your passport, but you have been a permanent resident, it means that you have to go through the process of foreign assurance, which is used when when the director is using a passport. So also you would need the proof of residence for all the beneficial ownerships, which comes in the form of a utility bill, a bank statement, and the likes. And then also you need to make sure that your share certificates are there, which indicates to say for the beneficial ownership, what is the percentage of shares that each and every individual has, and also have a share register, which also summarizes to say how many shares does each individual have. This is as per the Companies Act, Section 33 and 50 of the Companies Act. And also, if you're appointing someone to do that on your behalf, then you would need to have to sign a mandate authorizing the next person to act on your behalf. So those are the documents that you need when you're filing your beneficial ownership. And just a recap, you cannot file your annual return if your beneficial ownership is not up to date, which means that you have to ensure that the beneficial ownership is done before your annual returns become due, such that if there's anything missing, it's done. As if your annual returns are not filed on time, there are possible implications that come with that, which I'm going to discuss also in the coming slides. So let's say your beneficial ownership. Okay, so who should file beneficial ownership? Companies and close corporations are registered in South Africa. They are required to file their beneficial ownership. I'm going to indicate the entities that are exempted from filing beneficial ownership in the next slide. Okay, so the responsible for filing beneficial ownership falls upon the registered companies and close corporations, and then also the exempt entities that I'm going to indicate in the next slide, they are not necessarily required to file their beneficial ownership. So, okay, so the slide for, sorry, okay. Okay, I don't think the slide is there, but anyway, I'm going to take you through the entities that are exempted from filing beneficial ownership. That's if you're a state-owned enterprise, you're exempted from filing beneficial ownership. If you're a public listed company that is listed, if you're a public company that is listed on the JSE, you're not required to file your beneficial ownership. Or if you're a public company that has a PIS score that exceeds 350, you're also not required to file your beneficial ownership. Yeah, those are the exemptions. The entities that are exempted from filing their beneficial ownership, or if you're a subsidiary of the companies that I have indicated above, then you're not required to file your beneficial ownership. Okay, so with regards to the implications of not submitting beneficial ownership. So if you don't submit your beneficial ownership, as I saw it was indicated also in Yolelo's slides that she was projecting earlier, you're subject to a possibility of a penalty for failing to submit your beneficial ownership. And also because I indicated that you cannot file your annual return without filing your beneficial ownership, it means that if your annual return is submitted late, then you face the risk of actually incurring a penalty, and also face the risk of the company being deregistered, because if the annual returns are not up to date, then CIPC deregisters companies. Earlier this year, I think around January and February, they were deregistering companies that had not declared their annual returns. So you should ensure that all your annual returns, they are submitted on time to avoid the possible implications of company deregistration. There's also the possible implication of disqualification of directors because of the non-compliance with the requirements of the CIPC, which is to ensure that all your submissions are done on time and all the information that CIPC requires is also submitted accurately. So those are some of the implications for non-submitting beneficial ownership, which also feeds into the implications of not filing the annual returns. And also there's a possibility of also reputational damage should the non-filing result in court orders from the CIPC, which means that there's a possibility that the company's reputation might be affected negatively, which might have implications on the future operations of the businesses as well. Okay, so that's the possible implications of non-filing. Okay, so I think that's it from my side. I'll hand over to you, Mollen.
Okay, thanks, Tendai. Thanks, Tendai. You can stop sharing so that I can share the slides from my end. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for highlighting the process, what you need. So I think everyone who is here, those that have indicated that they haven't yet filed, you now know and the documents that is required. So I think just before we go into question segment, I just want to ask what kind of support or help, what kind of support or help with the beneficial ownership would you require before we just go into question and answer session? If any, so you can just participate and engage. Do you want training on BO reporting compliance? Do you want legal and accounting consultation around this, or a checklist of a guide on submission requirements or to simplify the reporting, the process to simplify the reporting part of it so that you have a process within your company? Okay, I see that. So I think for those ones that need a training, you are welcome to just drop in your email so that you can indicate, we can just see how best we can help you in training on BO reporting and compliance, especially if you have a group of companies as well. That's very important so that you can put things together. And the checklist, please drop your email address and also state what is it that you require. Then we'll be able to send you the checklist or a guide on how on how do you do the submission or how do you compile the information, because I can see that 57% of you require a checklist or a guide on the beneficial ownership requirements. Okay. Thank you for that. Any question? Any question, you can raise your hand, then the team will mute you or unmute if you want to ask any questions around beneficial. Do we have a question on the chat?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Shane, can you read through the question? Because I'm sitting with her, so she can't read because of the echo that will happen.
All
What
right.
is the question?
The question that we have is from Raymond Makumbe. He's asking, share certificate and register, do we submit the documents from the previous submission?
Can you ask the question again? So I'll ask maybe Tendai to take that answer. You say share certificates.
He says, yeah. Share certificate and register. Do we submit the documents from the previous submission?
Okay, so if it's still the same, I think I can just answer that. So obviously, there are a lot of changes that happen within the company. So when you are doing your submission, the share certificate doesn't change really. But with the beneficial ownership, the register change if you put in more beneficial owners. So for each and every submission, you need to update the beneficial ownership of your company. Because share certificates, unless if you have added or the share of that particular shareholder changed, then that's when those are the changes that you need to put in. Okay. Next question.
We have another one from Karinda. She's asking, so how and where do we submit the BO documents? Or are you not going to disclose that there? Yeah. So the
Okay, so she's asking to say, how do you do the beneficial ownership submission? In other words, so if I hear that correctly, so you do that on CIPC. So if you have a portal, some people already have a CIPC portal. So you find out now, if you have to do an annual return, you have to do a beneficial ownership. So there are promptings when you are doing that, then you fill in, you submit the documents on CIPC, or you can just ask your accountants like us to help you do the submission. But if you have a portal as well, you can do that on your own. But should you need help, especially for the first one, we'll be able to assist on that one. Another question?
Another one is Sisanda asking how much the cost is for beneficial ownership for us to do it for them. What is your fee for BO filing?
Okay, I think we have something here. We have a promotion that we are running. I don't know whether it's here, but I think you can just drop your email, then the team is going to email you. But I think it was the promotion under normal circumstances. We charging for the process to do the share certificate, especially if you don't have everything, share certificates, share register to compile that. I think it was 1,400 normally, once off. Then, but for this special, we are offering a special for the people that are in here. We're gonna offer a discount for that. If you want, just drop your email to or a separate chat to Brenmo or Hazel, who is in the meeting, so that we can help you with that as well. But the normal one is 1,400 to assist with the whole process, submitting, compiling the documents, and all the register for your companies. Do you have another question?
We had a follow-up question from Karinda. She is asking if are we not supposed to submit it to the Master of the High Court?
Okay. Yolelwa, do you want to take that? Because I think it's legal. To say,
Yeah,
where do you?
no problem.
Yeah.
There is no requirement for a BO to be filed at the master's office, as it's process that is managed by the CIPC, including the government CSD abstracts information from the CIPC. So that is the only place in which you must file.
So we had another question. Just quickly close this. So what if the shareholder of the company is from overseas? How do we submit their beneficial ownership?
Okay, how do we submit the beneficial ownership for that? So I think Tendai spoke about if the owners of the company are foreign, so which means the shareholder has a passport, not necessarily South African identity. So there's a foreign Tendai, do you want to take that maybe verification that happened? Maybe can you take through that process again on that one?
Okay. Am I audible? Okay. Okay, so for the part where one of the shareholders is a foreign national, which means they'll be in possession of a passport, they go through a process where you submit the passport, the certified passport, and then it has to go through under foreign assurance. That is all done on CIPC. It's not done outside the system. Then after a day, after 24 hours, it usually takes 24 hours or more. But then it indicates that it has been approved, and then thereafter, then you file the beneficial ownership that they've checked the details that are on the passport. That's the process of foreign assurance, because they don't have an ID. Because when it's an ID, they can verify the information via the Department of Home Affairs. So yeah, that's the process.
Okay. Thank you, Tendai, for that. Any other question, Shane?
We have, I think, one last one from Sisanda. She's asking, how about trust? Where do they file?
How about what? Can you say that again? Trust.
Yes, a trust. How about trust? Where do they file?
Okay, so the beneficial ownership, remember we're talking about companies that are registered with CIPC. Maybe you really want to take that one on in terms of trust, because trusts are registered with Master of High Court, and they are governed differently. Maybe you really I can give you that one.
Yes, Pauline, you are spot on. A trust is not a company, and therefore is regulated by different legislation unless the trust owns shares in a private company and exercises control as per the requirements, which is 5%. Then that company in which the trust owns those shares will have to disclose the trust as a beneficial owner, but not the trust itself categorized under companies. So there is no requirement like that for the trust.
Okay. Thank you. Do you still have another one?
Yes. How do you know if you are compliant after submitting the required documents? Does it show on CIPC?
Tendai, you can take that one.
Okay. So technically, when you're non-compliant, as soon as you log into your company profile, it indicates that your BO, your beneficial ownership is pending. But as soon as you're filed, you should receive a notification, which is more like the document that is on the CIPC letterhead indicating the beneficial owners that you would have declared, and also the shares and all the information that you would have declared. So as soon as you have declared, the prompt that the red indicate the red wording that you would see, it goes away. But as soon as it becomes pending, then you see it shows that there's a beneficial ownership declaration that is pending for this entity. So as soon as you're done, they send a confirmation of submission, which indicates that it has been submitted successfully.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Tendai, for that. Any other questions, Shane?
We don't have questions in the chat.
Okay. No, thank you for that. So Yesa is gonna put an email, or Christine is gonna put an email. Should you want more information around beneficiary ownership, that you can just inquire our secretarial email, so that we can assist you on everything that you need to. Like what I said, for this one, if you were in this seminar, we were going to get a discount. I think I didn't ask for an approval from the Secretarial Department, but I think you can just get a discount out of that 1.4, and we can do that for 1,000 to help you comply, because that's a very important compliance requirement. So thank you everyone for joining in. Should we don't have any further question, you can follow us on our pages. The next workshop that we have is the Leadership Accelerator. We believe in growing businesses, and their leaders as well. This is a paid event, and it's on the 31st of March. So you can just follow us on our page, book for that seminar, so you can understand more. And we also have a lot of webinars that are coming in that relates to compliance. How do you manage your business? So stay tuned and follow us on our different pages. You can contact us on the following numbers as well. And Yolelo, you can drop your email should people want to get hold of you regarding the legal element, because Yolelo also do a lot of trainings around companies. You can drop that in, or you can contact us for anything that you want assistance on our numbers. So this is our contact details. We hope you have found this webinar, short webinar, very useful and helpful. Should you still want to stick around, we're going to still be in the webinar for some few minutes should you have any other question, or you can just contact us either at HelpAid or at Secretary, or the email that have been posted on the chat. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.